Hello.
Hello there, guys. Thanks for coming back.
Welcome to I Don't Know Her, the podcast where we talk about women that you should know, but you probably don't.
Mm-hmm.
I am Amanda.
And I'm Rita.
And we're going to tell you about a couple of really badass ladies today.
I am so excited about the one that I brought.
Oh, I am too. And I probably should have known about this person before. And I'm really disappointed in myself for not knowing it. And I blame all my male history teachers.
Well, mine was female, and I blame her too.
You had one history teacher the whole time, and she was kindergarten through 12th grade.
Dear God.
No, I'm just joking. You just said you had one teacher.
Oh. No.
No,
I had
not just one?
multiple. No, but I took my AP history teacher. She was evil.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Glad to hear it. When we get done, I'm going to talk to you about a really cool woman nowadays.
Got it.
Can I start? Would that be okay?
Go for it.
Okay, last time you started, so I feel like, well, I can start this time because I'm really excited. Now, once again, I may have a pronunciation issue. Oftentimes I can go, there's this like stupid YouTube channel where you can like, how to pronounce blah, 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 and it'll play a YouTube pronunciation of this name, but not any of these. So I was out of luck. I'm going to talk about Lozen.
Lozen.
Do you know Lozen?
I don't know her.
Okay, she is a Chiracahua Apache warrior.
What?
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. She was born sometime in the 1840s. Her exact birth date unknown.
Yes.
As a young girl, she did not partake in traditional roles for girls. She wanted to learn fighting and warfare skills and the art of being a warrior. She didn't do a lot of the domestic work that some women in the tribes have done. In fact, she started riding horses when she was 7, and she became very good at stealing horses.
Ooh,
Yes,
nice.
which was very good.
Sounds like a little bit of a wild streak there, too.
Well, and I read somewhere on one of the websites I used that Lozen wasn't her actual birth name. Mm-hmm. That Lozen was the like sort of name she earned because it Lozen, the name, has something to do with like the stealer of horses.
Okay.
So it was the name she earned, and it was the only name she was called, and it's the only name she's remembered by now that I could find.
Oh, so you didn't know, like, her real birth name is unknown?
I don't know what her birth name was.
Okay.
So she's only known as Lozen, and I guarantee you right now, if you Google Lozen, she's the only one who comes up. Okay. Because she became that famous. So once again, she's Apache. She's Chiracahua Apache. Mm-hmm. It's hard to describe, but I'm not the most skilled person at describing this, but you can have a whole tribe like the Apaches, but there are different bands within those tribes, and she was in the Chiracahua band, basically.
Okay.
And she was very close to her brother, Victorio, and he was a very famous, very well-known war chief.
Wow.
He tutored her on the art of war. He would work with her. He taught her how to do all kinds of skills, and soon she was going into skirmishes and battles with him all across the Southwest as they were trying to protect their people from white invaders.
Was that something that would normally happen? Do they teach their women how to battle, or?
Not really.
Okay.
I do want to say that when we think about traditional roles, we have a very westernized idea of that.
Yeah, I do.
And that's not really how indigenous life was. Yes, women did a lot more of the sort of what we would consider domestic work, but it wasn't required. There wasn't this like sort of, you can't do these things. Nobody, it seemed to me when I was reading everything I was reading, nobody seemed to stand in Lozen's way. Nobody was like trying to oppose her being part of war. It just wasn't usual.
Okay.
It just wasn't the kind of thing that most women were either drawn to or wanted to do. And of course, it was extremely physically demanding. And if you wanted to have babies or something like that, you know, you can't, there's a lot of things you just can't do, you know, especially at this point when, you know, everybody's fending for themselves. I mean, let's just be honest, like, this is a really rough life at the time. Like, we're not talking about like you live in your nice little cushy home and, you know, you watch your Taibo
This is survival day to day.
She's learning how to become a real soldier, like a real warrior. And she's actually helping Victorio protect their land and their people from all of these white people who are coming in. In the 1870s, Lozen and Victoria's band were forced to move onto the San Carlos Reservation in Arizona. Despite their better efforts to try to protect them from these outside invaders,
what happened?
The U.S. Army captured them.
Happened, yeah.
The U.S. Army captured them and forced them onto this reservation in Arizona, the San Carlos, and it was nicknamed at the time Hell's 40 Acres.
Oh, so it was a real pretty place.
It was deplorable, is what they was described as. The conditions there were deplorable. And when I did a little research just on the reservation itself, on the history of it, I discovered some tales that are pretty fucking gross about how the soldiers, like the army, was completely indifferent. They didn't even see these Apache men, women, and children as human beings.
Yeah.
And the soldiers there at the reservation that were like sort of like controlling it would brutally torture and kill them in front of each other, like kill these Indians in front of everybody.
Sadistic.
It was fucking gross. They would do it for sport, is what it was described as. It wasn't even like, oh, you did something wrong and I'm arbitrarily going to punish you. It was like,
it was torture.
Hey, won't it be fun if we do this terrible, horrible thing to this person? So, of course, Victoria and Lozen want to get their people out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1877, they lead a band of their people off the reservation and they begin raiding and killing all of the invaders of their land.
Wow.
And legend has it, this is really cool, that Lozen was instrumental in helping them evade capture by U.S. forces because she could sense where an enemy was and where they were coming from.
Crazy.
No, it's really cool. Okay,
yeah.
So what she would do is she would stand out in in a field and she would have her arms stretched out and her palms facing the sky, and she would turn as the direction of the sun in a circle, and she would pray to Usen, the Apache creator. And when she felt tingling in her hands and when her palms would darken, she'd be able to sense where the enemy was.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That's one thing I always have admired about natives, is just their connection to everything around them. Such a deeper sense of spirituality that freaking Christians will never understand.
Well, I think, it's not, I think it's like the kind of thing where we don't allow that. Like there's just like this Western ideal that blocking. Like we don't, we can't get that in tune with ourselves and with our surroundings. So at one point they're out in the middle, like, right? There are U.S. Army forces everywhere. At one point the army is descending upon them and they want to get the women and children to safety. And they have to cross the Rio Grande to do so. And it is a raging, gigantic, huge river, right? Like it's miles apart. And they need to get to the other side of the river to be able to get away from the U.S. Army. And all of these women and children are standing at the riverbank and they're just frozen in fear. They're terrified. There's gunfire everywhere. They can't, this river, it's just insane. It's just flowing like crazy. So she decides she needs to lead them across herself, by herself. So all of the other warriors are fending out the U.S. Army so that there's enough time for these women and children to get across the river. So there was this man whose name was James Kewekla, who was a young boy at the time. He was only about 10 years old. And he was with his grandmother. And he described the scene like this. And I love this. I saw a magnificent woman on a beautiful horse. Lozen, sister of Victorio. Lozen was the woman warrior. High above her head she held her rifle. There was a glitter as her right foot lifted and struck the shoulder of her horse. He reared, then plunged into the torrent. She turned his head upstream and he began swimming. Immediately the other women and children followed her into it. When they reached the far bank of the river, they were cold, they were wet, but they were alive. And Lozen came to Kewekla's mother and said, "You take charge now," she said. "I must return to the warriors." And those warriors were standing between the women and children and the onrushing cavalry. So Lozen drove her horse across the river again and returned to her comrades.
So not only once, twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Across that river. I just can't. I actually looked at the picture of the James when he was a kid.
Yeah.
There's like I found a picture of James and his mother and his grandmother, or no, his stepmother and mother. I can't remember what it was, but he was just a young boy, and he remembered, like it to me it sounded like almost like a fairy tale, like a you know,
So
she sounds
commanding.
larger than life.
Yeah.
She sounds like she's a magical being, you know, like she's just somehow greater and bigger and stronger and more magical than anybody, you know. It just sounded to me like the kind of thing when you were a kid.
Yeah.
That you'd just be like, oh my
It's
God.
magic. Yeah. Yeah.
Like she's like a goddess or something. Victoria, her brother, was very well respected, and he was feared by whites. And he said of Lozen, his sister, that she was his right hand, strong as a man, braver than most, and cunning in strategy. Lozen is a shield to her people.
That's amazing.
And she was.
Yeah.
So not only did she do that thing, I've got to tell you this other story about her.
Okay.
She proved this many times over that she really was this shield. She really was this, like, badass to the bone, like, righteous motherfucker. That's what I think. So at one point she decides to leave the band of warriors to help escort a very pregnant woman to safety. And Lozen delivers the baby.
What? Oh, because she
was
knew
a medicine woman.
Yeah.
So she's a warrior and a medicine woman, so she delivers the baby by herself and then has to get them to another reservation where they can be safe. And so she has only a rifle, 1 cartridge, her belt, and 3 days worth of food. And they set out on a very dangerous journey across territory that was occupied by both U.S. and Mexican forces.
Wow.
When it was clear that they needed more food, Lozen decided to go hunting. But
Oh, no.
think about it.
Yeah.
There's Mexican forces, there are U.S. forces. They both want these people dead. What's the worst thing you could do?
Fire gun.
That's right. So afraid that the sound of the gun firing would betray them, she killed a longhorn steer with a knife in her bare hands.
Oh, my God. Holy shit.
Right?
That ain't easy.
She butchered it, and she did. So the thing is like we talked about, like there were she knew all of the traditional stuff that women did. Like she had done it, but it wasn't her preferred sort of activities. But here she was taking care of this woman and this infant, and so she butchered it. She dried it so that they had enough meat to last them the rest of the trip. At one point, they are found, and there's gunfire hailing down on them, like literally gunfire just pouring at them. And in the midst of this, she stole a Mexican cavalry horse, another horse for herself, a soldier's saddle,
Wow.
his rifle, his ammunition.
Where the hell are these guys? They're out taking a piss or something? Shit.
She found a guy and like fucking knocked him out or killed him or whatever, and she's stealing all his shit. So she got 1 cavalry horse and then stole another for herself. She stole the soldier's saddle, his rifle, his ammunition, his blanket, his canteen, and drum roll please,
What?
his shirt. And I was,
Get it all, girl. Get it all.
I know, I was like, yeah, you get it. And she was able to deliver the woman and her infant safely to the Mescalero Apache reservation.
Oh, my goodness.
But
Oh.
when she arrives, she finds out that Victoria's been killed.
Oh, no.
Now there's no one really protecting the band.
Yeah.
So she knows that she has to get back to the survivors. So she rides alone across the desert through U.S. and Mexican military patrols and rejoins what's left of her group. And the few remaining Apache that she has join up with none other than Geronimo.
I was going to say, cool.
So she fights alongside Geronimo and his warriors against U.S. forces. And she meets another warrior woman, another Apache, but a Geronimo's band, named Dateste, I think. She was bilingual, and she could speak English. And so Lozen and her tried to negotiate treaties with the U.S. In fact, at one point, they proposed, in an effort to try to protect their people, to try to get them to stop being killed.
Yeah.
They proposed, our leaders, us, me, I will go to prison for 2 years if you'll leave our people alone.
Oh, wow. So they put themselves on the line again. Don't you wish we still had leaders like that?
Don't you wish? Their attempts were always denied, or they would make a deal, and of course the U.S. would betray it.
Yeah.
One thing, this Dateste was probably Lozen's romantic companion.
Oh, nice.
And unlike Lozen, though, Dateste was very feminine in appearance. She rode and fought just as well as Lozen, but she was said to be a lot more sophisticated and just had this like real regalness about her that was very contrasted to like this rougher exterior, sort of go rumble in the woods type exterior of Lozen. So Lozen, Dateste, and Geronimo fought the U.S. military forces until it was revealed that the Chiricahuas had been surrounded, rounded up, and sent to Florida.
To Florida?
Yeah, so
The
while
hell's in
these guys were
Florida?
out here fighting,
Yeah.
they went and found all of the others, rounded them up, and sent them to Florida.
That's weird.
Well, and they're from the Southwest.
Yeah,
Isn't that grotesque?
yeah.
I mean, that's literally, like, think about growing up in the desert and then being forced to be in the humid, hot, wet climate of Florida. And all of the bugs and the diseases that exist that you don't have any immunity to. It was intentional to try to kill them off. Mm-hmm. And of course, these guys are not stupid.
Gonna kill you, but not kill you. Yeah.
They know that that's what's going to happen to their people. Mm-hmm. So they agree to surrender to the U.S. so that they can join their family, their kin. And 5 days later, they're headed on a train going east. Lozen was taken as a prisoner of war, not to Florida. She was taken to the Mount Vernon Barracks in Alabama.
Oh, jeez.
She died of tuberculosis in confinement on June 17th, 1889, and she was buried in an unmarked grave in Alabama.
So she's somewhere in Alabama, not even home.
Mm-mm. Today, the Chiricahuas, because of what the U.S. did, the Chiricahuas are split up across the U.S. Some bands live on the Fort Sill Reservation near Apache, Oklahoma. Some are on a small reservation outside Deming, New Mexico. Some live on the Mescalero Reservation in New Mexico. They all got split up and never got brought back together.
Jeez.
Native scholars today point at Lozen as an example of someone who is two-spirit. She would have been called a man-woman, I believe, or a woman-man.
Mm-hmm. I've actually heard of that term before. Yeah.
And I don't want to be like culturally stupid and insensitive, so I'm not going to try to explain all of that. But I will say that there was really great resources online. I think it's really important to distinguish that our European Western ideas of gender and sexuality are not at all applicable to this. Being two-spirit doesn't mean gay. It means something much more complex than what we even have language for or understanding of. It is important to note that like she's sort of a hero amongst people who identify as two-spirit. Lozen never married a man. She's said to be... People said that she was more masculine than the men in her tribe. When she was young, she would play games with men and like roughhouse with them and wrestle, and she'd always beat them. And she earned the respect of the men in her tribe for her physical strength, and she was known for being an incredible athlete.
Wow. She sounds like an amazing person.
And you can see
all around.
There's this one photo of these Apache warriors, and her companion are up in the right-hand corner. Mm-hmm. And it's just really cool. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just found it to be really inspiring and so upsetting also that like...
There was no justice. There was no anything. Yeah.
I would like to know if maybe... Because what I read was that she was buried in this unmarked grave and therefore lost forever in terms of nobody knows where her remains are.
Yeah.
I would be curious to see or find out or hear whether or not people have done like sort of an excavation looking for her remains, if they've found them. Like, I don't know when the information I got was written. Like, I don't know if anything has happened since then. But I would really love to hear that at some point she got some vindication, was able to be in her own land with her people.
Yeah. It'd be awesome if they could bring her home.
I got most of my information from Wikipedia and a website called Ancient Origins, and a man who was Chiracahua. He wrote a blog. His name was Chiracahua Apache, and I really liked his blog a lot. And I also, actually, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't an ignorant fool, I went and found a couple of presentations that had been put online that were done by like Indian Health Services and stuff about Two-Spirit people.
Oh, okay.
Where they talk specifically about Lozen.
Yeah. That's actually I've heard of that before because my family, we have Apache in us. And I had done a little bit of research like in high school and things like that just because I wanted to see, you always hear your family says stuff. And I actually found pictures of my great-great-great-grandmother, and she's like full on, bone straight black hair, and she looks super native. And I was like, oh my God, like that's actual proof. Okay. So I just kind of looked into like the regions and like the people that were, but I had actually, even the research I did, I never saw that or her, but I had read about Two-Spirit people. Yeah. Yeah. They were actually like kind of slightly revered, and they were gone to for advice and healing. And
yeah, there's some of the stuff I read was like, and other things that I've known over the years, that often they were viewed as people who understood more about the world because they could understand both genders, both ideas. But again, our idea of sexuality and gender, having grown up in a very westernized culture, is not at all comparable to what it would have been like to be in this sort of actual Two-Spirit mindset, what the tribes would have thought of that. I actually found it really inspiring and interesting to go through those PowerPoint presentations that were put online, because they had pictures and descriptions of a whole bunch of other well-known Two-Spirit icons.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, I want to talk about all of these people.
Well, that'd be cool to get into. Yeah, I'd love to research that more.
Yeah, it's really neat. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the story of Lozen.
That was awesome. She sounds like a badass. Yeah.
Yeah, she's my hero now.
Well, the lady that I chose is around a subject that you and I are both familiar with.
Oh.
Arlene Pieper.
God, I was really hoping I knew this one, but I don't. I'm so shocked.
Say it.
I don't know her.
She was the first woman to finish a marathon in the U.S.
What?
Right?
Oh, wait, was she that woman who okay, never mind. I'll let you talk. No, I'm excited.
So one thing about me and Amanda is we both have done marathons. And we
Rita
both
is a multi-marathoner.
A 2-time marathon runner, multiple half marathon runner. I've done multiple 10s. So is Amanda. We've done 5s. We trained together a lot. We've actually did a 20-mile run together once. And you want to get to know somebody, run fucking 20 miles with them.
Yep.
Running into the bushes, finding somewhere to pee and poop.
Because at mile 18 is when your body starts breaking down, and you really get to know each other, because your mind is at that breaking point, your body's at a breaking point.
You're fizzling out, basically.
Yeah, and you just get to see somebody at their literal worst.
Yeah, and everything hurts and you want to die.
Yep. It was bonding.
It's bonding time, but it's also one, for me, it was one of the greatest goals I ever achieved. And I told myself, I'm going to do it. And I did it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to do it better. And I cut my time. And I've never been pushed so physically hard until, comparing to when I had a baby. I mean, but this was voluntary.
You signed up for this one.
I signed up for this one. I paid money for it.
I was so proud of myself for having actually completed a marathon, because the amount of time and dedication it takes to continuously work toward that goal, especially when you've got a life and a family and a job, to carve out that time. And so I'm trying to take that same mindset of running a marathon and training for that marathon. Not just, I think when people talk about like, oh, I ran a marathon, if you have never done it, I don't think you quite grasp how much time and work and emotional
and the mental
baggage
stamina.
Stuff. Yeah, you have to do so much for it. So I'm applying that same sort of drive and motivation and ambition and mentality to writing my novel because it feels the
There's
same
all
way.
kinds of marathons in life.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's hear about what Pieper?
Arlene Pieper.
Arlene Pieper.
Well, it's spelled Pieper, so I'm pretty sure it's Piper.
Or it could be Pieper.
Pieper. Mrs. Pieper.
Sorry, Arlene, we're not making fun of you, I promise.
I couldn't find out where she was from. I couldn't find out how her and her husband met, but her story starts with the two of them. They were running some gyms in LA for this man called Harold Zinkin. And this is where most of the information started with her, was when they were moving to California. They moved from California to Colorado. So I'll go a little bit into this weightlifter. He was kind of he was a famous bodybuilder, kind of that classic beach bodybuilder, oil and little man panties. And so
Did you just say man panties?
I said man panties,
okay,
yes.
All right.
So he was a weightlifter, bodybuilder in the 1930s, started his own chain of gyms and stuff like that. He wanted to emphasize on weightlifting, but make it accessible to people by making it safer. So he actually invented weightlifting machines. He created like the resistance in that you're not pulling a bar straight from the ground and putting it down. It's having the resistance against it so that it's safer and it's easier and it's more accessible to people, because he wanted to get more people into being fit. I'm mentioning this because I'm imagining that Arlene is part of a gym where things are kind of revolutionizing, kind of different, and people are coming up with new, better ideas for health and fitness. So her and her husband end up leaving LA to open up their own gym in Colorado Springs. And it's actually called Arlene's Health Studio. So it's her gym.
Oh.
Yeah. So he
was just a pretty face.
He actually was very proud of her. He supported her dream in creating this gym, and it was actually a gym just for women. Because Arlene knew that, I'm imagining in LA, it's a lot of guys pumping iron that might be a little uncomfortable for some women to be around.
Well, just in general. I mean, even now, it's hard to go to gyms with men there. It just is.
Yes.
If you're, like when I was younger and, a little more svelte, it was embarrassing because you'd feel their eyes watching you as you worked out. And it was like, you can't really, like, when I'm working out, I want to fucking work out. Like, I want to focus on how hard I'm working. I want to breathe hard. I want to sweat. I want to grunt.
And then you look over and some guy's staring right at you. You're like, ah.
I know. Yeah. And then when I was trying to be straight, I felt this like...
trying to be straight.
I felt this like need to be cute while I worked out.
Yeah.
Fuck
boundy
that.
with the ponytail, perfect, and you gotta have that gym outfit. And...
I couldn't grunt, that's for sure. That was not dainty.
Well, Arlene was aware of the need for a less intimidating atmosphere, so she created this gym with her husband. People said that Arlene was known for her gold stretch pants and purple top. Yeah. Could you imagine that jazzercise outfit?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Olivia Newton-John it up, girl.
And I saw a picture of her, and she's nice banging body. She's blonde, beautiful face. One thing I liked about her though, she was muscly. She looked more like a real woman. She was curvy,
Oh, all women are real.
All women are real, yes. So she actually, her husband encouraged people to call him Mr. Arlene. She had a gold car with a purple racing stripe down the side.
Wow.
To match that outfit.
Wow. I'm sorry, but holy shit.
So this is all around, from what I gather, this is around 1956, 1957.
Oh my God, I was thinking it was like the 80s.
No, this is mid-50s.
Because I was like, I get the gold in the 80s. It was like a...
Nope.
Oh my God, the 50s?
Yes.
How weird.
How weird is that? Yes.
I had like a muscle car in mind. Like I thought it was going to be like a Pontiac. And now I'm trying to picture what the hell this car looked like. So did you find a picture of the car?
I did not find a picture of the car.
We're going to find a picture of the car to put it
pants.
on the Facebook page.
She said that she would go around and, she was trying to create an image, to promote this gym and get people in. So everyone, the girl with the gold stretch pants, in the gold car. And to quote her, this was a time when all they thought women should do is bake cookies and have babies. My slogan for the gym was, you can be a wonderful mother. You can be a wonderful wife to your husband. If there's anything you've wanted to do for yourself, just get out and go for it.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought that was very, very cool. So in 1958, Arlene and her husband saw a promotion for this marathon, and it's called the Pikes Peak Marathon, and it's in Manitou Springs, Colorado. And her and her husband discussed it, and they thought that if she ran it, it might be good for business. No woman had finished it. It actually was not a race that women were barred from. Just women never finished it. The Pikes Peak is actually the hardest marathon in the U.S. to date. The race to the summit climbs over 7,850-foot gain in elevation.
Holy shit.
And that's in the entire race. And with the first 3 miles completely vertical.
Oh my God.
And
my body hurts in sympathy already.
Dirt and rock covered trails. And it said there's, in quotation, obstacles along the way. So that could be anything.
So this is not, here's what I would say, that this is not like a regular marathon. Regular marathons are street races, they're road races. This is more like something like an ultra.
It's definitely hard. This is going up.
My big runner goal, and I don't think I'll ever be able to achieve it now because my body is breaking, but my big goal was to do the Bridger Ridge Run, which is all along the ridge of the Bridger Mountains outside Bozeman, Montana.
Oh, okay.
And it's like 20 miles, and they have cutoffs where if you don't make it by a certain time, you're out of the race no matter what.
Oh, wow. So it's a pace race.
And it's a lottery to get into it.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, like they only take a certain number of runners a year. You have to write like a personal statement about why you should be chosen. It's a big deal, but it's similar to this in that it's all mountainous. It's literally on a peak. There are moments when the place where your feet are is like maybe 6 inches wide, and any wrong move will send you flying down the side of a mountain. Jeez. And you will be dead. And so it's a super intense run. And even though it's only 20 miles, it's an ultra. Like the cutoff
trail
time.
Trail running is hard.
It's very hard.
It's such a different surface.
That's why I broke my body.
Hard to bounce off of and maintain, not let alone your balance.
Yeah,
the impact on your knees and hips is way different.
It's so much more difficult. Like I said, that there's a time cutoff for the Bridger Ridge Run.
Mm-hmm.
The time cutoff is really long. Like you've got like 6 hours, but a lot of people don't finish it in 6 hours
because it's so hard on the body. So
yeah,
hard.
And like you have vertical, you have downhill. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff.
So it said there was obstacles. So literally could be anything.
Yeah, boulders.
Yeah, I went on a trail one time. I did a 30K on Mount Spokane, and it said light trail running. Fuckers lied.
Yeah,
I had to cross a stream, and I was like, you didn't say anything about water, and literally like heard something hiss at me from the bushes and started booking it because I thought it was like a mountain lion or something, and then running the last 2 miles were straight uphill, no trail, just grabbing onto weeds and going up. It was crazy. But so trail running, not the funnest. And
not for the faint of heart. Not for a weak person.
No.
Not for a weekend warrior.
This trail, there's no aid. There was no aid. No aid stations, no water stations, no food.
Oh shit.
In this run. It was held in the late summer. So it's freaking hot.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm already in pain and sweating.
So the first part of this run is what they call the ascent. And it's 13.3 miles up. There's a camp, which is called the Bar Camp, Barr. It's about 8 and change up. And there is a road you can drive up, but that's not the road that they're running up. So people will park their cars up there. They'll do the 13.3 ascent. And that's where most women would get in a car and be driven back down, and that would be the end. They would do the half. They would just never finish to running back down the mountain.
So wait, so the trail part of it would be like 13 miles, but if you drove it in the car, it'd be 8?
No, so the bar camp is 8 and change up, and then all the way to the ascent is the 13.3 continued up, and then they would go down and they would get in the car and then drive
so they
back.
would go, but then that would mean that they really did 13 plus 8.
Something.
Or well,
so
13
8,
plus 4 or whatever.
8, 13.3 total, and then back down.
Yeah, so then they would do 13.3 up, and then another, like, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'm counting with my fingers. 5 more miles after that
Yeah.
to get back down.
To get back
to the bar
camp.
Yeah, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So they would really do, 18 miles.
Yeah. They would, but yeah, nobody ever... It
but
wasn't
nobody
that
had
they
gone
could,
over.
It wasn't they could, but like, wouldn't you think if you got halfway there, you'd be just like, I want to see if I can do this and run back down. But
well, is it like you go up one side and then you hit the peak and then you go back down on the other side?
I didn't actually see the route. I saw some pictures of people on the trail, and it's full on route.
Route.
Did I say route?
You said route.
Route or route?
Route.
Route.
Isn't it route?
I say route.
Okay. Okay, so you didn't look at the route.
Route. Is it route?
I don't know. I feel like this is one of those regional dialect
Is this one of the, I'm from Washington, you're from Montana, and we don't
route
know?
And route. We'll look this
Is
up.
it a crick or is it a creek?
Okay, so listeners, if you exist, you're going to weigh in on the route versus route.
Route versus route 2018.
Bout. I rhymed. Okay.
Look at you. Yeah, so the ascent is the first 13.3 miles to the top, and then they finished the race back down. So women were not barred, but they had not finished the entire, and it was more than 26 miles, but 26 miles. So Arlene enters the run in 1958, thinking, I'm going to promote the gym, I'm going to get it done. She gets to the top of the ascent, the 13.3. She gets caught up in chatting with people and gets disqualified for finishing for the full 26 miles. You're supposed to finish. You can go up there and take like a minute, look at the view, and then you're supposed to go back down. You're required to. And she was chatting with people. And
so wait, she took too long? Is that what it is?
She took too long.
So she didn't make the
so
cutoff
Arlene
time.
was chatting. She seemed like a very social person.
Yeah, with her gold lame outfit on.
Her gold.
Yeah, I can see that.
So she was a little too chatty. Didn't realize she missed the time cutoff. So she went home. She was committed to finishing. She decided at that point, I'm going to finish this race next year. So she uses the next year to train. And she found some running shoes at the dime store, is what she called it.
Oh, man, those are probably stellar shoes.
I bet they were great.
I bet they had great support.
So she
Help
said,
with pronation.
with her dime store tennis shoes, she began training with a local track coach, which I thought was kind of neat. At this time, she's a mom of 3 and also running her business. So she would bring her children to the track 3 times a week and run 10 miles on a track.
Oh, God.
And that sounds miserable. If anybody out there knows what running on a track is like, it's
for
terrible.
Long distances,
for long
no
distances,
fucking way.
It's boring AF.
You use a track for sprint. You do it for build-ups, warm-ups, sprints, especially like do a long run, do like a 5-mile run, and then get on the track and do sprints.
Yep.
So that you know what it feels like to push your legs hard when you're already tired. But you do not run in circles for 10 miles. We are
Which
not
I'm imagining,
hamsters.
like, how fast was she, I wonder? It never said how fast she was. So she did that 3 times a week because she couldn't take her kids with her to go...
Yeah, to go on trail runs.
To go on trail runs. So what she did was every Sunday, she would run to the bar camp and back. So she would go with her track coach friend, and they would run up to the bar camp because he told her she would have to get used to the elevation gain and to get her lungs ready, which if anybody out there knows about running and elevation gains, like I've run in, lower levels and higher levels, and it does make a difference.
Makes a huge difference.
Huge difference to the amount of oxygen you're getting. So she would run to the bar camp 8 miles and change up and back. Race day, there was only 12 people on the starting line.
Wow.
It was her and another lady. Oh, this is quoting her, by the way. There was another lady, my daughter, myself, and I was 29. And the others were men. Yes, she's 29 years old at this time.
Wait, her daughter's running it?
Her daughter is going to do the ascent with her, yes. But her daughter's not going to finish it.
I wonder how old her daughter was.
Her daughter was 9 years old.
Holy shit.
So her daughter too, with the track, her daughter was running with her.
Wow.
So it was a beautiful day. Couldn't have asked for a better day. Sunshiny. I had my short shorts on because that's what we wore back then, and a white blouse tied in a knot. That's how we did things back in the 50s. I saw her in that outfit too.
Was she smoking?
It was smoking.
She was a babe?
Yeah, she was a babe.
I'm absolutely 100% picturing, oh God.
Jane Fonda.
No, I was thinking of in Mad Men, Mrs. Draper.
Oh, January Jones.
Yeah, January Jones in like full 50s look. Because she did that.
She tied the little knot. And those shorts were
pants.
short.
I bet they were.
They look like undies.
This is a photo we absolutely have to put online.
Yes, and this is a photo that's definitely being up. She said, that's how we did things back in the 50s, and my tennis shoes from the dime store, and off I went. The training and the elevation gain paid off. She passed most of the men who were, to quote, panting on the trail. She boasted a smile at them and said, "Isn't it a beautiful day for a race?" as she passed them.
Oh my God, isn't that so great? That's like what's a pretty girl like you doing in a place like this? Winning. So her 9-year-old daughter, Catherine, and her husband were behind her for support. They went to the 13.3, making her daughter the youngest participant to finish the half. Which was badass.
Yeah, so 2 records at once, mom and daughter. They got in their pre-parked cars off trail and drove down with the other woman and leaving her to complete the race alone. Newspaper man was quoted as seeing Arlene hit the 13.3, wave with her hand behind her head, but didn't turn around to stop, which I thought was pretty cool. I think she learned her lesson from last time.
She was like, bye-bye.
Not getting caught up in chatting this time. To quote, "At the finish line, I felt pretty good," she says. "I'm sure I was a little tired, but I wasn't completely exhausted. I lost all my toenails a few days later, though. Every single toenail fell off." So if anybody knows also about running, that is a definite thing that happens. I've seen it happen. I've never experienced it.
Did.
I didn't lose a damn toe.
So here's the thing. I have Morton's toes, which means that my second toes are longer than my big toe. And so they hit the front of my shoes, especially if I do downhill. So after I finished, I think it was my marathon, because I did a mountain marathon. Mm-hmm. And the first 6 miles were all downhill. We lost 3,000 feet in elevation. And I know that sounds like, oh, that would be great because you go super fast.
No.
But your legs are shredded after going downhill for that long and at that steep of a descent. So the rest of the race was brutal. But my skin on my toe
You
kept
showed
turning
me
black,
it.
right? Every time I was running.
Like, oh, dear God, what happened?
So one day, Abby and I are on a road trip. I don't remember where we were going. And I was wearing sandals. And
oh, God.
My toenail never turned black. It was my skin that was black on the end of my toe. But the toenail itself wasn't black. Mm-hmm. But I was looking at my toenail. And I just sort of took my fingernail and just sort of like tugged it. And the whole thing just peeled up.
Gross.
And Abby saw it happen. And she was like, oh, my God. She was horrified. She was so mad at me.
It is horrifying.
I thought she was going to divorce me over it. She was like, what are you going to do with the nail? What are you going to do with it? I was like, I guess I'll throw it out the window. She's like, throw it out the fucking window. So it was a test of our marriage.
Oh my God.
And when I said that I was going to try to run another marathon, it was probably a year later. She was like, no, you were gross. You were so gross.
You were so gross.
Everything was gross all the time. You need to not do that.
I certainly did get very creative in finding places to poop because I am a poop runner.
Yeah.
I get around mile 13 and then I gotta go. I think one time, oh no, my second marathon, remember I got to like mile 18? I like texted it to you later. I was like, I didn't poop for like the first. You get real basic when you run.
You get to know your body in ways you wish you'd
raw.
never known.
Yeah, I never knew. I got tremors in my jaw and in my collarbone. Like I was shaking like a crackhead. And I asked a friend who was helping me train and he says, oh yeah, your body's freaking out. It's just freaking out because it's never done this before. And I was like, oh, Okay.
We're really turning you guys on to running long distances, aren't we? You're excited to get your shoes on, your dime store shoes, and you're going to go up into the mountains.
So I can imagine to her to go to an ascent at 13.3.
Oh, God.
And she's running that down.
And think of those shoes, girl.
And
think of those shoes.
So she finished her racing time in 9 hours, 16 minutes. So it sounds like a very difficult race.
Oh, I mean, just getting up, I think, would take
forever.
4 hours, 3 hours.
Once she ran the race, she disappeared. So the next part of what I have is the process of finding her.
What do you mean she disappeared?
Nobody could find her.
Well, I don't understand. Did
she didn't get kidnapped. No.
Oh, God. I listened to a lot of true crime podcasts, and I thought we were going to go in a totally different direction.
3 inches, by the way, out of her seat. She's, what? I think she would probably be like, we got to solve this.
I was about to go on the manhunt.
So nobody at the time realized that this was the first woman to run a marathon ever. Nobody would have noticed unless 2 other running icons was Roberta Gibb, who she ran as an unregistered runner in 1966, and then Catherine Schweitzer, who finished it. Yes, the Boston Marathon.
Yes.
Which women were barred from.
Yeah, and that's like, you guys have probably seen it on Facebook if you follow anything that has like any kind of feminist undertones at all. Mm-hmm. There's that really famous portrait.
She's legit getting yanked.
Yeah, the race official is literally trying to yank her off the track. And her boyfriend was there, and so was a friend of hers, and they fought the race official off. Mm-hmm. So I know who that is.
Yes.
And I've heard of Roberta Gibb, too.
Yes. So Roberta Gibb did it, but she was like dodging through. Like it literally says she raced as a bandit. She didn't register.
What race? Not the same race as Pieper?
No.
Okay, so neither of those women raced this particular race?
No.
Okay.
Pieper finished that marathon in 1959. Schweitzer finished the famous Boston race in 1967. So people at Pikes Peak were like, wait a minute, she already did that. Like, someone's already done a marathon. It was here. So they were like, oh, let's find her. They had the records. They were like, we can tell people that Arlene ran this race. But by then she had already moved away, and she had never even recognized the fact that she accomplished this thing and made history. It literally says a quote from someone from Pikes Peak who said, wait, a woman already did this. Like, they're like kind of shocked that nobody knew. So it said that she just disappeared into obscurity. Nobody knew where Arlene had gone, or even if she was aware of what she had done. A decade went by, then another, then another. They couldn't find her. So Ron Ilgen, he came on as race director for the Pikes Peak Marathon in 2002, and he just felt like he had to find her. He had hired a private detective who literally came up blank. Nothing. So it happened 2 weeks before the 50th anniversary of women running at the peak, and he's like, I got to try one more time. I got to find Arlene. I want her to know what she did. He put up a reward. And if somebody could find Arlene, it wasn't much though. It was $250, but still, they're like, if you can find Arlene, $250. An amateur genealogist living in Colorado, Linda, she was reading the paper and saw the reward, and she just thought, I'm going to take up the challenge and see if I can find this lady. It's just a really interesting story, and it would be really neat. So she's actually documented her search in a genealogy magazine looking for Arlene. And it reads like a mystery novel, it said, with false leads that lead to dead ends. Like,
I want to read this article.
Yes.
This is like ticking all my boxes.
So eventually she tracked down the family who had gone back to California. They went back to the gyms of the original guy, the German guy that they were working for in LA before. He needed more gyms managed, so they moved back there. The only way that she was able to find Arlene was that one of their sons' names was after a bodybuilder. And she just thought, who else
would name their child?
Who else would name their child a bodybuilder name?
Especially in the 50s.
Exactly. So she's the one, Linda Vixie's the one that called Arlene, she had to track her down. She was even calling neighbors, trying to get a hold of her, got her on the phone, was able to tell Arlene what she had done. And Arlene had no idea, 50 years later even, that she was the first one. She tells Ron that she found her. Ron and the commission for the Pikes Peak Marathon, they get Arlene and Kathy, her daughter, and they fly them out to be part of the race, the 50th anniversary celebration of the Pikes Peak Marathon. There's also a women's group called the Peak Busters, which is a women's organization that supports the women runners at the Pikes Peak Marathon. Linda was also there. And Linda is quoted as when Ron told the women who are the Pikes Peak, the Peak Busters, said it was very dramatic. He got up and said, "We've been looking for her for years. We found her. She's going to be here tomorrow. I saw women who later I learned were world-class runners, and they were wiping tears from their eyes." So she gets to the race, and she's a freaking star. And she's shocked. She's just been like plucked out of normal life, and these people are just asking for autographs, and she's doing TV interviews. She's treated like a queen. They got her set up, and everybody's just like all over her. It said she said she was treated like royalty. She had no idea that she was so special to all these women. And then her and her daughter get to start the race. They get to officiate. She gets to bang the gun and take down the banner. And then the female who won the race in 2009, she got to place the medal on that woman 50 years after her own unrecognized feat, as well as her daughter. Isn't that amazing?
Oh my God.
I started crying.
I almost cried.
Could you imagine that 50 years and getting to be like, have the honor of putting that medal on, and you didn't even know. And all these women just are so proud of you because of what you started. And she just didn't even know.
I think it's upsetting to me that as a runner, I always, like, I know Roberta Gibb, I know Schweitzer, but I had no idea who Arlene Pieper is.
Yeah. So as of now, her and her daughter are still flown out to that race every year.
How old is she, though?
It said as of 2017, she said she'll be there as long as she can talk.
But how old is she?
If she ran the race in 1959 and she was 29.
So she was born in 1930.
Yep.
So she is now, holy shit.
80.
Yeah, that's old.
Something. There was no documentation or record that she had passed away, though. I even looked up like Arlene Pieper death, like looking for an obit or something like that. So I actually put in her name a couple of times and I was searching different things, and I actually found a link to Linda's search for her. And she's like looking for Arlene so-and-so. She's this. Her family was in Colorado at this time. Contact me if there's any information. And it's back when she was searching for her. So I thought that was kind of neat.
Oh, I love how the internet is forever. And I also hate how the internet is forever.
The internet is forever. As far as 2017, she was still alive. I don't know if she's passed away. But this really hit a note with me just because I know how hard it is and the effort and the fact that she had a supportive husband. She had a supportive family. She got it done. She ran her business. She took care of her kids. She trained in horrible shoes and she looked good doing it.
Yeah.
Even like having her daughter there, and they even had like an interview on YouTube of her as an older woman, and she's got like this like kind of clean, crisp white button-up shirt, but still just a very young, very bright looking face. And she's, oh yeah, all they thought is all we could do was make babies. Like she's just kind of chipper, and yeah.
She sounds like just a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And that's all I got on Arlene. The story really, I thought would strike a note with both of us because we've both done it.
It does strike a note with me for sure. So something we've been trying to do, but we don't always do, is that we try to like talk about something or someone that we've seen or read about recently that's kind of been doing something really fucking badass. I wanted to talk about all of the Native American women who are currently running for office.
Nice.
There's one in particular I want to highlight because she's in our neck of the woods.
Oh.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
No.
Paulette Jordan.
Yes.
Is running for the governor of Idaho.
Yes.
She's just across the border from us. And she is incredible. If you've not heard of her or seen her, go look her up. By the time you are listening to this, the elections will have passed. And I doubt it that she'll win because I live on the other side of Idaho and I know what a shit show it can be. But she is just so, I don't know how to describe it. Like, she's the kind of person, she's like a Michelle Obama. Like, walks in the room and the everything
Command.
shifts. Like she just brings this regal, sophisticated, also very, very fierce energy, and also she's not too hard on the eyes either.
Yeah, she's really, really pretty.
But there's also this woman, and oh my God, I'm on my phone right now trying to find her name because I didn't prepare myself. There is a Native American woman running for office in, I think it was like Arizona. I'm looking her up. Yeah, she's an ex-MMA fighter, and her name is Sharice Davids. She's an attorney, a former mixed martial arts fighter who won the Democratic nomination for a House seat in Kansas.
Oh, wow.
That's what it is. If she wins, she will be part of a class that's expected to include the first Native American woman ever elected to Congress. She's also an open lesbian. She would be the first openly LGBT person to represent Kansas.
Hey, she's in our neck of the woods too.
Yeah. And I just found her to be her original like campaign commercial was so badass that it just was absolutely inspirational to me. And I just wanted to highlight Paulette Jordan and Sharice Davids, and I hope they win.
Nice. I was too caught up in my research of Berta, so I did not. I saw this story and I wrote her name down because I was like, that's going to be my moment. And I forgot to continue.
What was the story?
It was about this Olympian. I think she was from Iran. She's a swimmer, but it was talking about a story that she had actually helped. I think it was a boy and another girl. They were crossing some waters and they were like the boat was going down. So they actually got in the water and like towed the lifeboats with their bodies. Like when she was a child, she's always been that strong of a swimmer. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I think I've heard of this. Next time, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between and outside, we will come with that name because I think it's important.
Yes. That was the story that caught my eye. Yeah.
Well, to all the badass women out there and femme-identified people, keep doing you.
Keep getting it. Keep climbing that mountain.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Peace.